People are asking, what is judo law? Judo is a martial art that uses the opponent's strength to defeat them by not opposing it directly. Gary C. Johnson created a method of practicing law based upon that principle. It worked so well, he named it judo law. To see the results, go to GaryCJohnson.com. To have Gary and his team of judo lawyers go to work for you, dial pound HURT. This is an advertisement.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson tries for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into Simply the Law. I'm Keith Casebolt, my dear friend, Gary C. Johnson.
Wonderful to be alive. Right, my friends?
Amen.
Guys and gals?
Amen.
Woo! Ah, yes. And all of you are celebrating the gift of life. And it just popped in my head that there's somebody sitting in a room together right now that are mad at each other over what I believe might be an imaginary slight. Okay? Get over it. Talk it over. Discuss it. You're wasting the dash. Sitting there, being miserable, fuming, pouting. What does pouting do, huh? You know, we all sneak around and pout, right? That never do anything for us. It sure doesn't hurt the other person. So look at each other right now and have a big old life and say, how stupid can we be?
You know, Gary, I know a couple of individuals that went 20 years and didn't speak. 20 years. Made up after 20 years. Become best friends, fishing together and doing everything. And the only thing I could think of is, think about all of those lost times and memories and fun they could have had in those 20 years.
Okay, now did you do what I said? If you didn't, I'll give you another chance. Because remember, you've only got this little old bitty dash. And if you're pouting and sitting there, mad at each other over some little old something at 24 hours from now, a month from now, you're not even going to remember. You're wasting your dash. So one last chance now. Look at each other in life and say, you know, we are being really foolish, aren't we? We are wasting our dash. And remember, we've only got a very small dash. Don't do it. You know, there's not a doubt in my mind you're out there because it popped in my mind, okay?
You threw out a challenge one time on the radio program. You said, if there's anybody out there that thinks I have done or said something wrong, please call me. I'll be happy to apologize. And I said, well, Gary, maybe you weren't wrong. And you said, what difference does it make?
That's right.
You said, if they think I did wrong,
I did?
I did. I'll be happy to apologize.
That's right. Because your relationships with each other is the only thing that matters. I can't emphasize that enough to you, my friends. The people in your life and the relationships with the people in your life is the only thing in this life worth having. It's not money, it's not possessions, it's not cars. It's the relationship with the people in your life. That is your most valuable asset. That is the thing that makes you feel good. And when you pout around, that makes you feel bad. When there's no reason for it, feel good. Because every second you feel good is a second of the dash that was not wasted.
You know, you talked on our last television program about instead of buying things, reaching out. Well, here we are. We're a couple of days away from Christmas. Probably the greatest gift our friends could give is to pick up the phone and make a call, have a conversation with a friend, a colleague, a relative, write them a note, as you said, fill out a nice Christmas card, but give to them some of your time. You have pointed out to me time and time again, Keith, our friends that give us 30 minutes to watch this television program, that give us 30 minutes to listen to the radio program, do you know what a great gift that is? They're giving us their time.
Time is the greatest asset you have. Time wasted is worse than wasting money. You know, because I watched a TV show once, a movie or whatever, where that they gave them when they were born so much time, and it was the currency that they used. They could trade their time they had left to other people. Well, as usual, some people got rich and had thousands of years of time, and then some had almost nothing because they squandered their time away on that movie. And yes, the currency that you're using, the most important, valuable currency you have is time. And that time that you have, my friends, should never be wasted on feeling bad or pouting or whining or getting upset over something that really and truly doesn't matter.
My friend, what a great point you've made. So if we give 40 hours to our employer, he pays us, or she pays us, per hour, whether it's $10, $15, $20, that's what the value is put. So when we give of our time to our friends, our family, it is a currency. Our time is actually worth money.
It is. It's the most valuable currency you have. And it's all for the sense of your well-being. If you have a job and you're being paid by the hour, then be there that entire hour and give whoever you're working for full value of your time that they're buying. Now, if you don't like what you're doing and you hate it, try to find some other thing to do. If you're going to sell that time, if you're going to sell your time, do it with grace and dignity and give full measure for the bargain you made. Am I making any sense? I hope I am.
Wow. I'm sitting here thinking right now, all of us could relate if we could get 15 minutes with a politician or a famous actor or a musician or our hero, whoever our hero was. If we could have 15 minutes of their time, what would that be worth? Well, why don't we do that with our friends and our family? You're making perfect sense to me.
So, my friends, that was my little beginning today. Time is currency. And my friends that were sitting there pouting at each other, I hope you've had a good life and got over it by now, because there is not a doubt in my mind you were doing it, and you know who you are. Okay?
See, it makes so much sense to me. So you got this couple that's sitting on a couch. They've been sitting there for 15 minutes, not speaking to each other because they're mad. And you're sitting there saying, look at all the things that you could have done in that 15 minutes. You could have made each other laugh. Mm-hmm. You could have made each other happy. You could have learned something, said something.
You could have said, look how stupid that Keith and Gary are. Boy, can you believe they say that dumb stuff? There's all kinds of stuff you could have done to make yourself chuckle a little bit and to enjoy your dash. There is.
Why are we watching those two guys?
Yeah, I can't believe this. Where's that clicker? Give me that clicker.
They thought they were tuning into Andy Taylor and I'm Barney Fife, and instead they got Gary and Keith.
Let's go see if we can find Barney Fife or somebody. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
You know, it's amazing when I meet people and they say, really, you got to tell me, is Gary that happy? Is he that positive? And I said, I promise you, what you see on the television show, what you hear on the radio, That's Gary, and if I can ever get to that state, I'll be that happy, and I hope you can too. Stay with us. Gary C. Johnson is coming back right after this with Simply the Law.
I'm Gary C. Johnson. I developed a method of representing my clients called judo law. Using judo law, our team set the record for the largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. No other law firm has even come close. We've had several multi-million-dollar verdicts since then, and guess what? Now, most of our cases settle. If you've been hurt and you need money fast, give us a call, pound hurt.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. We were just in a break talking, and our good friend Ronnie over here said, you know, you guys may be the only positive, friendly show that's on television anymore. And we just had a lively discussion during the break. Negativity, criticism, it is rampant. It's everywhere, and no one is focusing on the good people and the good things that are going on.
If I was giving any advice at all to my friends out there, it would be, except for Simply the Law,
Yeah.
turn your TV off, especially on any news programs, because you will get nothing but negativity no matter which one you watch. And negativity feels bad. It serves no purpose. It's messing with your dash. Don't do it.
It's gloom and doom. I mean, it's the sky is falling every time you turn around.
It's not. It's a wonderful world out there. It is wonderful. And things are happening. And yes, there will be a stimulus eventually. And yes, we will be okay. And yes, we'll get over this COVID thing. And yes, the vaccines will take place. It takes time, but it will be okay. It's not gloom and doom. You guys are able, and gals are able, to sit there in front of a nice television. Hopefully you got good heat in your home and you're watching this program, right? Probably got a little snack to eat. How much better can it get? Huh?
Gary, would it be safe to say that our grandparents, if they saw us complaining and criticizing and our heads dropped down, they would probably take an old hickory switch to our rear end and say, you guys got it made compared to what we had in the 1900s.
Those of you that's got a few years on you that might be watching this, remember when all you could ever get was Channel 3 and then it was nothing but snow with an antenna on top of the hill?
And you had to call the neighbor to go up to move the antenna, and you had that little ladder wire that went up to it and all of that.
I mean,
and then on your telephone, you couldn't get on because you were on a party line. And I won't name the lady that lived around the hill that would say, it's those damn case bolts on the phone again.
but what the heck, you know? Life is good, right? Let's go to the computer. I want to talk to you about it. There's our number in case any of you need to reach us. We're in Lexington. We have some very nice offices in Lexington, right off of Winchester Road on Executive Drive. GaryCJohnson.com if you need us. In general, please, my friends, make sure you have your underinsurance that protects you and your family. And this is Dale Carnegie, picture of him. He was born November the 24th, 1888, and died November the 1st, 1955. One of the greatest, smartest, most brilliant men, in my opinion, that ever lived. He wrote several books, one of which is How to Win Friends and Influence People. I've probably given 3,000 or 4,000 of these books away to people. It should have been called How to Be a Better Human Being, would be more appropriate for the title for that book.
You know, Gary, what gets me, the copyright on that is 1936.
Yeah, 1936.
Now, you tell me the advice from Dale Carnegie is so relevant today, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're talking about 80 some years ago, almost 90 years ago, and still the advice that he gives is that relevant.
And Keith, we are going to read a little bit from his book today, giving him full credit for it, right?
Absolutely.
And so will you do the honors?
I will be happy to. And it is a chapter that when I first read, I got to tell you, I was absolutely shocked. And I called you up to discuss you with it. It's called If You Want to Gather Honey, Then Don't Kick Over the Beehive by Dale Carnegie. On May 7th, 1931, the most sensational manhunt in New York City had ever known came to a climax. After weeks of searching for Two-Gun Crowley, the killer, the gunman who didn't smoke or drink, was at bay. He was trapped in his sweetheart's apartment on the West End Avenue. 150 policemen and detectives laid siege to this top-floor hideaway. They chopped holes in the roof. They tried to smoke out Crowley, the cop killer, with a can of gas. Then they announced their machine guns on surrounding buildings, and for more than an hour, one of New York's fine residential areas was cracked with pistol fire and the rat-a-tat-tat of the machine guns. Crowley, crouching behind an overstuffed chair, fired incessantly at the police. 10,000 excited people watched the battle. Nothing like it had ever been seen before on the sidewalks of New York. When Crowley was finally captured, Police Commissioner E.P. Maloney declared that Two-Gun Desperado was one of the most dangerous criminals ever encountered in the history of New York. He will kill, said the commissioner, at the drop of a feather. But the question is, how did Two-Gun Crowley regard himself? We know the answer because while the police were firing into his apartment, he wrote a letter addressed to whom it may concern. And as he wrote, the blood flowing from his wounds left a crimson trail on the paper. In the letter, Crowley said, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one that would do nobody any harm." Now, a short time before this, Crowley had been having a necking party with his girlfriend on a country road out on Long Island. Suddenly, a policeman walked up to the car and said, "Let me see your license." Without saying a word, Crowley drew his gun and cut the policeman down with a shower of lead. As the dying officer fell, Crowley leaped out of the car, grabbed the officer's revolver, and fired another bullet into his body. And that was the killer who had just said in the letter, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one that would do nobody any harm." Crowley was sentenced to the electric chair. When he arrived at the death house in Sing Sing, did he say, "This is what I get for killing people"? No, he said, "This is what I get for defending myself." So what's the point of the story? Two-Gun Crowley didn't blame himself for anything. Is that an unusual attitude among criminals? If you think so, listen to this. I have spent the best years of my life giving people the lighter pleasures and helping them have a good time. And all I get in return is abuse. The existence of a hunted man. Who said that? It was Al Capone speaking. Yes, America's notorious public enemy number one, Al Capone, the most sinister gang leader who ever shot up Chicago. Capone didn't condemn himself. He actually regarded himself as a public benefactor, an unappreciated and misunderstood public benefactor. And so did Dutch Schultz. Before he crumpled under gangster bullets in Newark, Dutch Schultz, one of New York's most notorious rats, said in a newspaper interview that he was a public benefactor, and he believed it. I've had some interesting correspondence with Louis Laws, who was warden of New York's infamous Sing Sing prison for many years on this subject, and he declared that few of the criminals in Sing Sing regard themselves as bad men. They're just as human as you and I. So they rationalize, they explain, they can tell you why they had to crack a safe or be quick on the trigger finger. Most of them attempt by a form of reasoning, a logical or way of justifying their acts even to themselves, consequently stoutly maintaining that they should never have been imprisoned at all. If Al Capone, Two Gun Crowley, Dutch Schultz, and the desperate men and women behind prison walls don't blame themselves for anything, what about the people with whom you and I come in contact with? Now that, my friend, was the first chapter in this book that I read, and I questioned you. I said, how could Two Gun Crowley actually say, here is a kind heart that would do nobody any harm? But he really believed it.
That's right. That's the tragedy of it. How many of you, my friends, ever blame yourself for anything? That you can say, well, I'm sorry I messed up, but secretly, you know, you really didn't, right?
Wasn't your fault at all.
It really wasn't your fault. It was this and this and this and this. It's human nature. So, I guess what I'm saying is, when you start criticizing, condemning, and complaining to those people about what they did or didn't do, what's their reaction going to be? It's not going to be nice for you, I can tell you that.
They're going to defend themselves.
That's right.
And that was the thing that popped out of this chapter to me, because we will have all of those excuses. Well, if they hadn't have done this to me, I wouldn't have had to retaliate, or I wouldn't have had to say this, or I wouldn't have had to act that way if they had just treated me right. But then we look at the person that we're mad at, and we want to criticize them, not realizing, just like Two Gun Crowley, they believe themselves to be good people.
Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Interesting chapter in the book, and I'm sure all of us can figure a couple of Two Gun Crowleys in our life, huh? Stay with us. Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson, right after this.
Hello, I'm Gary C. Johnson. Here in the Bluegrass, we look at a team's record to see if it's a good team. Our team has several multi-million-dollar verdicts, and in 2002, our team set the record for the largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. It's still the record. No other law firm has even come close to it.
GaryCJohnson.com 800-337-4002.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. That chapter was a great lesson in how we can criticize and condemn others, but oh my goodness, can we figure out a way to forgive ourselves? And you have taught me that over the years, because I one time told you, oh, I've made this awful mistake, I'll never forgive myself. And you laughed and said, oh, you will. You'll figure out a way to do it.
Yep, you will.
You will do that.
Okay, you got a little more we can read from that chapter, because I think that's a really good chapter to share with our friends.
I do, and this one is really good. So criticism is basically what Dale Carnegie is telling us doesn't work. There are human nature in action, wrongdoers, people who blame everybody but never blame themselves. We're all like that. So when you and I are tempted to criticize someone tomorrow, let's remember Al Capone, Two Gun Crowley, and the others. Let's realize that the person we are going to correct and condemn will probably justify himself or herself and condemn us in return. Like the gentle President Taft will say, I don't see how I could have done anything different than I have. When Abraham Lincoln lay dying on the bed after being shot, the Secretary of War, Stanton, said, there lies the most perfect ruler of men that the world has ever seen. What was the secret to Abraham Lincoln's success in dealing with people? After studying his life for 10 years and writing the book, Lincoln, the Unknown, I believe I've made as detailed a study of Lincoln personally and home life as it is possible. I made a special study of his method of dealing with people. Did he indulge in criticism? Oh yes, as a young man he did at Pigeon Creek. He not only criticized, but he wrote letters and poems ridiculing people and dropping these letters onto the country roads. One of these letters aroused resentment that burned for a lifetime. Later on in life, Lincoln would write letters, but the letters were never mailed. He had learned, Gary, that the criticism did exactly the opposite of what was intended. So later in life, whether it was his generals or his cabinet, he would write a letter and then put the letter away and never mail the letter.
Because he did not want to criticize, condemn, or complain.
Yes, he had learned the lesson.
Well,
Now,
my friends, how are you all doing out there right now? Have you been criticizing each other any? Huh? Have you said anything negative about the food you were served? It is inconceivable to me that anyone could ever comment negatively on food that was served to them. Duh. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because in my little old feeble brain, it just popped in my head that one of my friends out there that's watching this program has recently done that. Now, guess what? Somebody went to the trouble to fix you some food. Probably that you might not have deserved since you started bad-mouthing it, okay? So remember, someone does something for you, say thank you. The food don't taste good, you say, this is pretty good, you know? Maybe next time we'll have something a little different. But do not. You never know the harm you're doing to another human being's dash when you say something instinctively like, I don't like this food. It seems like such a minor thing, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But what about the person that you're saying it to that did it? How do they feel? To you, it's a non-issue. So, my friends, keep in mind the other person at all times. How is my words going to impact their dash and how they feel?
you proved that to me one day at lunch when you told the waitress, thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing me to sit here and you to bring me the food and serve me. I can't thank you enough. And the young lady went on to tell Gary about how she took pride in her work, how her feet hurt from standing on the floor. And the lesson I learned from that, I said, Gary, I want to do that from now on. And you said, do you do it at home? And I said, oh, goodness, no. And that's, you're pointing out, we should be thankful.
That's exactly right. The people the closest to you are the ones you tend to ignore the most. Don't do it, my friends.
My friend, I want to thank our friends for tuning in. On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, thank you so much for taking this time to spend with us. As always, Gary and I look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this same time.
Thank you for watching Simply the Law, a program created by Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.